Welcome to the low-cost lecture capture system session. My name is Jeffrey Hanrahan. I'm with Academic Technology at the University of Notre Dame. And one of the tasks that we were assigned is lecture capture at the university. We're just starting out it, so we don't have a final solution, but we've been evaluating vendors' products. We've had them come and demonstrate them. We've leased them from them for 30 days to see how it works. And we've learned a couple of things, and I'll just go over that real quick with you. The current systems that we've seen, they vary across the board. Some of them require custom applications, like a PC in a box in a suitcase, and you physically carry that to the room, set it up, and record it. There's licensing issues. If you have one machine, that's fine, but what happens when you have it on 200 machines and only 5 of those are being used? A lot of the moves today are towards cloud storage, so there's a cost involved with that. And some of these lecture captures, they require post-processing, so sometimes you have to come up with a server to do that for the transfer. And then there's always maintenance agreements, scalability. What happens if you have just 5 systems? What if you want to equip, say, 200 of your classrooms with something? These all become issues when selecting a system. And there's also portability. Do you work with something like here where you have a control room and everything's embedded in the room, or do you need a student to wheel a cart into a room? And some of the big things are that we found that weren't really addressed by lecture capture systems is the scheduling. Some of them is simply you start the recording. Some of them, maybe they have 24 settings so that you can select what hour of the day to start recording. And we've looked at some devices that have the ability for you to set 30 pre-automated recording sessions. But what happens when your classroom sessions, there's 55 of them and you only have 30 presets? For us, we have 83 that we use, 83 different class times. So those were things that the current systems don't even take into effect. And then there's another issue where if you buy like a turnkey system, they stream the videos to a server, and that's fine. But what happens if you want to edit that file? You know, say you're recording a class and the professor's 8 minutes late, and you want to cut that 8 minutes out. Well, what do you do when it's been streamed to the cloud? There's no tools for you to do that. So you would need something to pull that back down, edit it, compress it back, and send it back up. So those are things that we've seen when we're looking into lecture capture systems. And some of them do mostly what you want, but we're a little more discerning. We want a couple of things where, hey, we want it totally automated, and we don't want any hands-on things. We just want to say, set it and let it go. So since there's nothing that does that, we decided we'll write our own. And what we did was we created an application called AT Capture. And AT Capture, we wrote this in Cocoa. It's an Xcode application that we developed. And what you can do, today is Wednesday, we normally record the Sunday Mass every Sunday. So you can say, okay, start recording on Sunday at 11:45 and do everything. And we're not even going to go out and look at it. It's going to do everything for you. You just like, almost like Ron Popeil, set it and forget it kind of thing. And what this does, it does a number of things, and it doesn't require operator intervention. It doesn't require somebody to have their hands on something. It doesn't require a process that needs to be restarted up. And what it'll do is record whatever video you give in it, whether it's a classroom, a seminar, and in one of our cases, the Mass, and then it's going to transcode that, which is put it into an M4V file, and we publish to iTunes U. So we wanted the app, hey, we're doing all this stuff, Send it to iTunes U as well. And then let it publish that. And then what do you do with the files on the hard drive? So, hey, we'll let the application send them someplace. You know, why should you mount a volume and copy it over? Just let the application do it. And what this does, we sort of said, well, we don't really have the money for machines. But you know, there's a lot of these PowerPC machines that people want to get off of campus. So, hey, you know, it would be nice if it works on PowerPC as well as Intel. And so it does. It'll run on anything 10.5 and above. So if you have a piece of crap machine that's due for surplus, grab it. But if it doesn't have FireWire, let it go. And it's built upon QuickTime, which every Mac has. And if you've tried recording and creating your own, and you use QuickTime, you're going to find some issues. You'll find that maybe you started looking into creating your own capture system or partial, and you go, well, we'll use QuickTime. And QuickTime has problems where you might see it record successfully for 30 minutes and then stop. It may go for 15 minutes, or it may stop after 3 minutes. And the reason for that is QuickTime has some built-in error checking. If frames are dropped, QuickTime will stop recording. And what AT Capture does is it tracks all of the error conditions and says, oh, okay, you have a dropped frame. We don't care. We're not going to stop. We're going to continue recording. But it will also give you a warning that, oh, you dropped 2 frames, you dropped 200 frames, and it'll keep your recording going so you don't lose anything. And the way the application is written, it basically has 0 footprint on your machine. There's no library files. It doesn't create any kind of preference files. You can just drag it onto the hard drive. If you don't want it on the machine, just drag it back into the trash and empty it. And you can also launch it off of a USB keychain. So if somebody says, we need to put a camera in a room and record, if you're in a machine, in a room, a classroom, and you don't have, if you don't have the AT Capture installed on it, you simply plug in a USB drive and launch it from there. And we have systems that typically we want to cut costs, and we don't need a monitor, keyboard, or mouse. We use Apple Remote to get to the machine remotely. So across campus, we could have a machine ready for recording. Nobody has to trek on down to push any buttons. Use Apple Remote, set it going. And depending on how you input your video, you might need an analog to digital video converter. And the basic rule is if you can get the video into the machine, you can record it. But then there's some camera manufacturers where they have to install their own player for the video, and so those won't work. So why did we go through all the effort and produce this application? Why did we do it? And we had a deadline that we had to meet. We had like 4 weeks in order to take over recording the Sunday Mass. And that was our sort of mantra thing, is we make it work for this. If it works for that, it'll work for anything. And we didn't have time to incorporate other vendors' stuff into our campus. We want a fully automated process. And we didn't want scripts. At some point in time, we said, oh, we can just run an Apple script that calls a Ruby script, and that will call an automator script, and stuff will happen. But there were pieces that scripts just can't do. And we didn't want to break it up into pieces saying, well, we have the recording, but now we have to snip a little at the beginning of it and a little at the end of it, and then resave it, and then transcode it, and then send it out. We wanted that to be all-inclusive. We wanted to reduce the human interaction. We wanted to increase the time, or increase the productivity and reduce the amount of error. And we also want to publish stuff quicker. They would record the 11:45 Mass on Sunday, and by Monday noon, it was out there published. And we sort of looked at that and said, this is a little bit too long. So this is the high-level diagram of what how the application is laid out. And you have options so that you can enable or disable any process if you don't need it. And you have the option of saving the files, and if you don't want it, you just uncheck the box. And you can just record a video, send that to archive. Maybe you have an editing crew that wants to do something special, or maybe you want to publish the transcoded file someplace. So you can just keep the output of that. Or maybe you want the application to publish it for you. Send it directly to iTunes U, whether it's public or private. And you then have the option of storing these files. You want to get them off the machine that it's on. So you can say, I want the master file to go to this machine. I want the editing file to go over to this machine. And I want the transcoded file to go to this machine. They don't have to all go to the same place. The technical details, it has 3 modes of recording. One is automatic. So all you have to do is select the pop-up, go down the list and select what you want, and hit start recording. It's all predefined for you. There's also the scheduled. So maybe there's not an automatic setting that matches the time that you want to record. So you can set the hour, day, minute, and second of start and beginning, and then record. And then there's the manual. You just hit the record button to start it, hit the record button again to stop it. Yes?
The scheduled recording function, is the schedule held in the application, or can you have it look up to a web dev server? Can you hold the schedule in a dedicated server made for that and pull down the info?
We are actually getting to that. Because I'll get to that, and we've addressed that issue. And this will publish to iTunes U, and it sounds like none of you publish to iTunes U. It'll submit the job to Podcast Producer, and it'll work with versions 1 and 2. And they're significantly different. I don't know if you use iTunes, but there's a public where the whole world gets to see everything. And then there's the private where only the campus has access to it. And so this is where we have our courses for students, put videos, PDF files, and all that stuff in there. And it has a number of recording modes. It'll record standard 720 by 480 in standard definition. And it'll also record high definition video at 1280 by 960. But one of the things that we see, and this feature isn't in anybody's capture system to date. When we record the source video, we want a golden master copy. It's sort of like the audio, like the record companies. You create a master copy, and you put that away, and you make a copy of it, and then you do the edits to the copy so that you never screw up that master. And that file is huge. Just to record 1 hour, it's a 13 gigabyte file. It's the equivalent of 4 DVDs. That's a lot of data. And current capture systems don't do that. And the reason for that is it just takes so darn long to copy it across the network. 27 minutes to copy that. And when we transcode it into the format, we use the H.264, 480 by 360 in the M4V format. We found that to be the sweet settings. If you transcode to that format, it'll work on the iPods, the iMovies, the iPads, and browsers on the Windows and Macintosh systems. And the file size will be small, the quality will be good. So that is kind of like the sweet spot that we found. And for transferring the files, we're not allowed, because of our information security, we're not allowed to do FTP. We can do secured FTP, but I haven't learned that yet. I don't know how to do that programmatically. So right now we're just settling for AFP or SMB for transferring. So you can send it to another Macintosh file server, or you could send it to a Windows file server. And when you upload a file to iTunes U, an hour of video, since it's in compressed form, it'll only take 4 minutes to upload it. And this application will also check the file size. There's a 1 gig limit for sending a file to iTunes U, and this will check that for you to make sure everything's correct. So what we ended up with is that we can record a 1 hour video, we can transcode it, we can publish it and archive the master, the editing version, and the transcoded file in 1 hour and 18 minutes after the event happens. So that means that if we record the 11:45 Sunday Mass, around 2:30, the world can view it. Now, there's some interesting changes in the Mac OS. 10.6 is the pivoting point of OSs. In 10.6, a lot of carbon code goes away, the support for PowerPCs goes away, and new routines are included. So we've been developing this with Xcode version 3, and it will compile for 10.5 machines, it'll compile for 10.6 machines, but it knows nothing about 10.7. So if we put in compiler directives to say, okay, if you're a 10.5 machine, we'll do this, a 10.6, and then if you're a 10.7, that doesn't work. So Xcode 4, the current version, has the same issue in the reverse order. So 10.4 will compile in 10.6 and above, but its world doesn't know anything about 10.5. So what do we do? Because we want to be able to save this stuff and run it. We actually want to run this on older machines. That way, you're going to see people trying to get rid of PowerPCs. Grab them. They're great for capture systems. And you don't need keyboards and monitors. You just need Apple Remote Desktop to get to them. So what we're going to do with version 3, which is currently in beta testing, is we're going to put all the features in 3 and compile it so that it works under 10.5 and 6. And then we're going to port it to Xcode 3 so that it'll go from 10.6, 7, 8, and on. And that's something you don't have to worry about. That's our problem to do. And there's new features that are going into 10.3, or version 3, I mean, of AT capture. I don't like getting up the day after daylight savings time to restart some processes. So it's going to be handling daylight savings code changeover. So if you told the app to say, start at 3 in the morning, record something for an hour, if it crossed daylight savings time, you're going to miss it. So this version will say, okay, you tell us that we want to record it from 3 to 4, but it crosses daylight savings time, so we're going to adjust internally so that actually happens. That's 50% in there right now. And we've added property lists. You want to be able to save your settings, configure anything, save it, so that you don't have to type in stuff. I don't like typing in things. I want to hit a button that reads, and I want to hit a button that recalls. I don't want to type in stuff. So I'll tolerate typing in things one time, and then just go from a master settings file and pull out what I want. And here's the issue where we have automatic recording times. We have 83 of them defined right now, but they're not going to match up to what you might need them. And we're going to add a plist or some means so that you can add just the ones that you want. Maybe you want only 4 different automatic settings. Maybe you want every single class meet. Maybe you want special times. So this will allow you to make changes so that when you select a pop-up menu for times, it's correct and somebody doesn't do a typo and then all of a sudden you're recording at 10 a.m. instead of 10 p.m. or something like that. That's happened a couple of times. And we currently have a security class in AT Capture where in order to secure server names, passwords, and login names, it's hidden inside the application. And this is like a hard-coded thing. But for people to start using it, we need to break that out so that you can configure it. And the reason we did it the early way is if you have a script that does automated things, if I take that and say it logs into a server to upload something, if I took your script and put it into a hex editor, I'm going to see what your password and your login name and your server name is. And we don't want that. So AT Capture had a security class that if you throw that into a hex editor, you're never going to see those passwords. So we're kind of evolving with that. Probably the best security practice is when you're filling out and saving, maybe just keep the passwords out. Or if you want to live dangerously, keep them in and just keep it on a USB drive and keep it close to you. And we have an option of metadata. Normally, we publish towards Podcast Producer, and Apple only gives you title and description of your podcast. That's not good for us. We want the artist name, we want the genre, we want the year, we want to know other things. So we have some code that adjusts the atoms of the video file to embed that. So you can send Apple's file with their required title and description. When the file goes there, all the other metadata is there. It wraps it into the video file itself. And so it physically goes with that file. We had it in the early days, and we removed it to put it on the server side. So now we're bringing it back. And one of the things we're seeing now is when it's used in a classroom, say you're recording a classroom session, a 50-minute classroom session, and then there's only a 10-minute break between classes. Well, it's not going to copy those files and do all that stuff in 10 minutes. So we're going to add the feature of being able to specify a time of the day or night for it to upload anything that's on the machine. If it's a standalone machine that's hardly used, like our Masscast machine, we don't care because it's only used once a week. And here's your question about iCal, well, scheduling. Normally, you select the time and date. And what we want to do is, I don't want to go to machines and say, okay, start Sunday and do this. If I do it every week, why should I do that? So the Apple stuff plays well with Apple stuff. And Xcode with Cocoa is an Apple stuff. So it plays well in the sandbox. So we are able to read iCal data. And so just think, if you have an iCal that's strictly for recording, we haven't figured out all the properties yet, but we're thinking a central single calendar that has all the recording dates, and then the applications would figure out which one it is, where it needs to record, and so to tell things to start recording, you just put an entry in an iCal file, or through an iCal calendar. And we don't have that yet, but that's where we're moving to. Yes?
I'm guessing most educational facilities already have a server that does all the scheduling of all the classes. wouldn't it be feasible to just pull data from there so that you don't have to have a redundant management of your class schedule? So Notre Dame, I'm sure, has a server somewhere that tells which class is in which room and starts at which time and ends at which time. So if you can pull that from there, you remove that layer of management.
Exactly.
And that's probably an open format where it's either WebDAV or it's some kind of database, time database that you can query.
We have an Exchange server, a Microsoft Exchange server. Need I say more? It's painful, let me tell you. But maybe if they do have APIs, we probably could read it. But with the iCal, it'll work. It should work. And that's something I'm looking to, because I don't want to go to every single machine, remote into them and tell them all. Right now it's fine. We have onesies and twosies. But when we scale this thing, if we have 200 classrooms, I'm not going to Apple remote it to 200 machines. I'm going to let the machine say, this machine, I respond to this type of an entry in iCal. And, okay, it's this building, this room. This is when I start. This is when I stop. I know what to do, and boom, it does it. So now we're going to do a demonstration. And if the wireless network holds up, we'll see something published. So I'm going to launch version 2. Hello. I want to make sure that 2 is launched, because 3 is in beta. Some things kind of work, a lot of other things don't kind of work. I think what's happening is the mirroring has changed the video formatting resolution. All right. Yes?
No, I was just looking at my hand.
Oh. All right, go away. All right. All right, so what we'll do is record it, and then you can wave, okay? Just be careful of your gestures and anything you might say out loud. So what I'll do with version 2 is simply record maybe 10 seconds or something, and then I'll go into version 3 and then sort of go through all the features and the menus and things. So what I want to do is, and because of this wonderfully fast network, I've been trying it through even the hotel Wi-Fi, and I have a 12-second clip, and it takes 10 minutes to upload it. So we're not going to be doing the upload side, okay? We're just going to say, publish to iTunes.
We trust you.
There you go, thank you. All right, so as I said earlier, I don't want to type in stuff. I don't want to type in all this stuff. I'll do typos. I'll get something wrong. I'll put something in the wrong field. So this is a Mac. This is a Mac. Press a button. There it is, the information. So now here's the recording mode. Let's do scheduled. Now you may notice that the menu is kind of like outdated, maybe 5 years old kind of. That's because we borrowed code from other apps. And the podcast producer information, the podcast data, this is borrowed from another app we have. So that increased our development time, because we had the libraries and tools. So we just copy and paste and toss them in AT Capture. So what I want to do is I'll show how recording through the scheduled. And the first thing I want to do is hit the reset button. And what it does is it resets the values to a known time frame. Because as we sit here and talk, 12:39 11 a.m., 12 minutes after, is going to pass. And if we tell it to record, we're going to get an error message saying, your time to record exceeds the current time. We don't want that. So the reset will take the current time, add 1 minute to it, and then add 1 minute to that value and make that value the end time. It gives you a starting point with which to select stuff so that you're not forced to do everything. And then while we're at it, you know, I don't really want to go through all those menus. There's got to be a simpler way, and we have one. So let me hit the reset and say, I want to make a quick end, and I want to record it from 10 seconds. And now I want to start. So now we're counting down. All the information is there for you. When the application was launched, when the recording is scheduled to begin, and if you're a person who likes 24-hour format, it's there. If you're a person who likes AM, PM, it's there. And it'll tell you when it begins, when it ends. It'll tell you how long the recording is set for, 10 seconds. It's counting down until when you told it to record, start recording. And when it starts, then you can wave. Got 8 seconds. And so you can do this. The Language Resource Center, they record foreign channels at 4 in the morning. So they kind of like this. Nobody has to get up and do something. So now we're recording. We just finished. If you notice the information bar up there, that's any process or error message, it'll be displayed up there. And the reasoning for all this complicated thing, you may set this application to run on a Monday and wait 7 days, and you want to know what you're looking at. You don't want to have to go through menus to find out, oh, what did I set this value to? What did I set that value to? So it's all there at a glance. So now it's publishing to iTunes U. And if you see on the desktop here, we have the 3 files. We've created a master file. That is your golden master, the one that you only make copies of it. If you archive it for your university archives, that's the version. And then we go, well, you know, we always end up editing stuff. So let's let the Mac do that for us. Why should I tell it? You know, why should I click on it and say make a copy? Let's let the application do it. Okay, so it's done. So that video is now in iTunes. And all we did was just hit the start. So let's take a look. Well, we'll give it a couple of seconds, you know. It has to go from Penn State to Notre Dame, from Notre Dame to Apple Computer in California to the world. But we sent this to iTunes U private. So it's not, they get a little bent out of shape when I send demos to the public space. So I'm going to log in and let's see if it's out there.
Where were you specifying where that's going? I'm sure you have a lot of subfolders in iTunes U.
What it does, I will show you that in the version 3. Because what it will do is, there's a validate button. Well, okay. Don't you just hate the security multiple lock-in stuff? But it makes the InfoSec people happy. So I don't know if any of you have seen, most universities will have iTunes Public, and that's your branding for your university. Not many really utilize the private one. The private one is totally a separate entity, and then Apple updated the public stuff, so it's really twisted and bizarre. And The private is only available to students that are signed up for classes. So it doesn't go off campus because there's copyright issues and things like that.
Plus, you wouldn't want someone who didn't register at university to attend
Exactly.
your classes.
Yep. I see some broken chain links. And there it is. Shall we play it? So if you look at it, if you normally send it through Apple's, over here on the menu here, if you send it through podcast capture, you would only get name and description. And here's another issue. When you're in iTunes, it's name and comments. When you're in podcast capture, it's title and description. Wonderful. So should we play that? So if you notice, it has the artist name, the album, the genre, the year, comments, all the metadata, where Apple normally just gives you the two. And there it is, just a 10-second clip. So that could be your 50-minute lab. It could be if you have a guest lecturer on campus. It could be an event that you're hosting. And all we did was we set everything up. We said, start recording and then do everything for you. Yes?
Something about the recording resolution, one of the slides. What was it again?
You mean the resolution that it records it in?
Or that it transcoded to.
Yeah. I'll go back to, I'll come back to that. And what I want to do now, I want to quit out of version 2.
You're transcoding locally on that machine right now.
Right. And it seems like I've seen some listserv things, and it sounds like that may be the way of the future.
Well, I've built transcoding clusters on 5 different solutions, so I know that intimately.
Yeah, we have a digital video server, and it has 6 terabytes of memory, 8 cores. It's fast. And we have episode engine, so whenever you want to convert one to another, it just blazingly does it quick. And what you can do with that, if you wanted to use your encoder engine or facilities, then what you can do is just send that source or the editing version file, designate that to a watch folder, and then let your process take it from that point on. And then that whole thing is totally automated.
There's stuff that's much faster than episode.
Yeah. Oh, really?
There's a company that has a product that they used to, the way you build transcoding farms in the past is, what still most of them do is you have the CPU transcoding the video. If you need more power, you just parallel multiple computers. So it's
Oh, distributed computing.
yeah, split and stitch. So if you've got a 2-hour clip that you need to transcode in 2 minutes, it'll take that 2-hour clip, it'll break it up in chunks and chunk the different computers, the different mixers or whatever. It will compress and then it will restitch the video.
Yep.
But there's a company out there that now will do that on high-end NVIDIA cards.
And it's better than episode, huh?
I've had, the company's called Elemental, if you want to look at it.
Elemental? All right.
One of their 1RU boxes outperforms 12 Xserve's compressor clusters.
That would be good to know. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So we're looking at version 3 now. It's the beta. And we'll just go through everything. If this used to be a real simple, version 1 used to be really simple. You would just double click on it and it says, I know when Sunday 11:45 is, and I know how long to record, and I know what the metadata is, and I'll send it to iTunes U, and I'll archive the files, and then I'll quit because I'm all done. But then we expanded upon it. because all of a sudden it's, oh, there's going to be a 12 o'clock mass. The 11:45 is going to be at 12 o'clock because it's a special occasion. And then there's another issue where, oh, it's the summer semester, so now there's no 11:45 mass. It's now 9 p.m. mass. So then we needed that capability of selecting presets. I don't want to type that stuff in, so you select it. So if you go to the intro, you see the main tab bars, and just work your way across. Start from one end and go to the other. And if there's stuff that you don't want, don't select it. If there's stuff that you do want, then select it. So let's go to the first tab, which is the setup. Here's the inputs. Anything that you get in the machine, you can select it. What if we wanted to go to the built-in eyesight? There we go. Any video input that you fit into the machine, it'll take. And what if you want audio only? What if you don't want video? Well, just say none. And now it'll just record the audio channel.
Can you grab a video stream?
Oh man, you're like going ahead. There would be an extra tab, and I'm not committing to that, and that would be streaming. Because just think, if you stream that stuff, you don't have to worry about downloading it. So, and then you can let some other thing like Kaltura dish it up to all different formats.
But if you have the ability to capture a video stream, you can then combine your camera with the same camera setup, can dual purpose to record and also be used for a security system at the same time.
You're getting ahead of me again. I will show you something that's along the line. He's a thinker, listen. All right, so we selected the input. And then these are the processes that we want. If we wanted to archive that movie, the master one, then we would select that. And if you wanted to make a copy of that for your editing file, you can do that. If you don't want an editing copy, don't check the box. If you want to encode the file, select it. If you don't check the box. If you're going to publish to iTunes, click on the add metadata and publish. If you're not, deselect it. That's where that flow chart, these are the features where you enable or disable only the processes that you want. And then authentication, this is the new thing. This one took a lot of work. I have a file here with all of the settings. And let me open that up as a plist real quick. These are all the possible settings that you can have in AT Capture. And these are all the settings that you can go, there's a location to say, I've got this program set up, make a copy of everything, because I don't feel like typing it in again. It has that feature. So here, this is where you would read all of your, where your server is, what the server name is, the mount point. Let's go over that. So I'm going to click on the button. Now notice all those red lines, all those red indicators went to yellow. That means I read that file. Maybe they're good, maybe they're bad, but I read what you had in there. So if it's good, you don't need to see a green. And here is the information for Podcast Producer. This is the server that we use. And you have the red arrow validated. What that means is you've actually mounted that server and you made sure the connection actually exists. So let's go into that, click on validate, and it's going to go out to the Podcast Producer server based upon the server mount path, your login name and password. And while it's there, it's going to harvest all of the workflows that you have access to. So It also determines what podcast producer server you're using. There's version 1, the old one, old reliable, and there's version 2, which has all the new workflows. So now, these are all the workflows that the application that you can send stuff to. But if you're in a canned system, if you're giving it to like a student to run, maybe you only want one of those identified. So we'll say, well, we want that's where we sent that movie to. So we're okay. And then you can also do the servers. Each one for the master, the editing, the archive. You can set where the mount path is. And you're going to look at this middle path here, these path resolutions. That's going to be kind of squirrely. And what that does is, when you're connected up through a local area network, your path, mount path, changes slightly. And if you're connected through a VPN, that path changes slightly. And if you're on the actual server itself recording, there is no path, and it's still something different. So this allows you to do all that stuff. And likewise, you can click on mount, and it will actually mount that volume on the desktop, and then you can eject it just to make sure that it's mounting correctly and available. And in the configurations, if you wanted to read every single value in at one time, you click on that open button, click on your master settings file, and now that entire file is imported in AT capture, so it knows what servers that you want to use, it knows their authentication, it knows what workflows you want, it knows where, if you want to save, archive, what you want to do. Forget about mode. That's kind of a development thing. Now, so we're all done with that lower tab. Let's go to the next one. And here's where we have the safeguards. These are the features where you disable QuickTime built-in error routines. When QuickTime drops a signal, this is where you can say, well, if somebody unplugs the camera or turns it off, your recording is going to stop no matter what you do. Now, if you have a video cassette player plugged into this, you want that turned on, because if you get crinkly tape, it's going to think somebody turned off the camera, and it did. So if you disable that, you'll be able to pull in a VHS tape format. It's sort of like an alternative feature of the application. But this is the second one here is what kills you in QuickTime. You don't want to stop recording on dropped or missed frames. So if you are doing stuff on the computer, or if you're connected to it and the machine you're using is so bogged down that the two are still going to want to try and talk to each other, but you may be pulling that capture machine down, and it's going to start dropping frames. And this is the mechanism that says, and don't let it stop recording. And if you notice at the bottom, it goes out and checks your hard drive and does a quick calculation to determine how much you can record on that machine. So I've got 19 gigabytes of hard drive space, so I can only record about 1.5 hours. So if you want to record a 2-hour, that's going to be bad. And then we already went over the podcast data. And you can also load only the podcast specific stuff. So you can have an individual plist for one location, for say one workflow or another workflow, so that nobody gets the choice of sending it to the wrong place. And then we have the recording, where you can select, these are all of them. The 53 whatever that we use. And then we've already demonstrated the scheduled. And here's the manual. I love the manual. You just hit the record button, it records. You hit it again, it stops. Yes?
Is that exposed through either an API or an Apple script command so I can trigger that from another system? Say I have a Crestron AMX surveillance system controlling everything in the room so that the teacher can start the projector, bring down the screen from a touch panel. Would I be able to then hit the record button there and trigger that? So I can give control of the stop record directly to the teacher.
We're actually looking at that. Right now, there isn't a way of doing that, which is...
Because, I mean, is there a dictionary? If I go into a script editor right now, do I see a dictionary for your application that I can send Apple script commands to?
That would be something we need to add to the list. That's a good point. Yeah, we'll need to look into that one. And one of the nice features about this is you can have, if you have a camera plugged directly in, and let's say it's an older camera with a digital video cassette in it, from here you can say rewind it or play it. And if you click on the record, what it does is it plays and then records that video into a digital format. So in essence, you're digitizing whatever's coming off of that camera. And we use this on commencement a couple of times, a real handy little feature. And then functions. I love the modify the end time while recording. You know, you have some kind of event. You say, it's an hour long, and you're looking at it and go, the guy's taking too long. He's going to go longer than an hour. So what do? Well, there's a button that says, okay, what do you want to do? So if we do, well, we don't want to, Automatic has some issues in version 3. Well, let's set, let's do a dummy recording. And, okay, we're not going to save anything or do anything. Reset. And we're going to say, give us some time to play. All right, so while this is counting down, in the event that your lecture is going too long, and you know it's gonna, if you set it for an hour and you know the guy's gonna go an hour and a half, you can set the end, and it's not gonna interrupt. It'll update the displays, and it'll be a seamless transition. And likewise, if you had it set for 2 hours and the guy only goes for an hour, you can simply press the stop button, or you can say, okay, let me remove an hour off of the end time. So it gives you the two options. And while we're waiting for this, it's smart about recording. If you tell it to record between, say, 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, and say you come up to the machine and say, record, and it happens to be 1:10, it'll say, oh, you want to record between 1 and 2, you're already 10 minutes in, I'm not going to count down, I'm going to start recording, and I only need to go for 50 minutes. So it'll do the automatic calculation for you. You don't have to play around with like, well, now I need to figure out what is an hour from an offset of 1 hour, 10 minutes. All right, so this is recording. And what if we want to modify the end time? So here, you can either decrement it or increment it. So we can say, let's take, all right, it has 29 minutes left to record. Let's take 20 minutes off of that. So we're going to decrement it. So now you got your 9 minutes. So it has that feature. Because I got tired of waiting for the end. It's a Mac. We can do stuff like that. And then there's cases where maybe you do want to make a slight text edit to the file. The professor's late for class. You got 8 minutes of wasted space. You don't want to publish that. So you can go in, use QuickTime, snip a little, snip the first 8 minutes off. And then it's like, well, I want to send it back on its way. So you hit the resume button, and that'll send it back on its way as though nothing happened. That's something I'm working on right now. And that's the demo for the actual application. This is one of our high-tech classrooms. This is sweet. See those big giant displays? 2 of them, all 4 walls. See the 4 at the top? See the whiteboard? It's dry erasable paint. That means you can use a dry erasable marker and write on it from the ceiling to the floor. There's no chalkboards. It's just new technology we're exploring. This is sort of like the prototype, make and break stuff work room. It has a Crestron system in it. And it has a control panel that says divert input from any one of these screens into the AT capture machine. And so the professor can say, well, I've got a PowerPoint on here, I'm running a video there, and I've got students working over here. Below each monitor is a jack where these tables can be moved on wheels, and students can break out. They can plug their laptops in and display their stuff locally. The professor can walk around and say, okay, now we're going to look at what the students are doing here, and they can display it for the class. So this is the hardware. There's the AT capture machine. It's just a Mac Mini, no head, no keyboard, no mouse. And that's what records all the stuff in there. And we learned some stuff from it, some interesting information.
Are those colored Mac Minis?
We color code them so you know what keyboard goes with what trackpad. And what's that?
Did you paint them?
No, there's like a vinyl color tape. It'd be nice if they were anodized. You could have that option. So with any application on the Mac, it's always used for unintended purposes. So one of them is kind of like, well, it's a capture system, but we record the math. The Center for Study of Languages, they use it as a beefed up TiVo system. And we use it, for our course management system, we stream videos for classroom instruction. And when a professor says, well, my content only exists on a VHS tape, it's like, crap. So we play the VHS tape, becomes a video input, and we just record it. So it's sort of become a Swiss Army knife for us. We use it a lot. And we had one where I have an MOV file, and I want to convert it to an M4V for iTunes, but I don't have QuickTime Pro to do that. So press the button, and that gets done. And also, be sure you adhere to all copyright. Copyright, copyright, copyright. No bootleg, no pirating. Make sure you adhere to your university's practices and policies. Now the crazy stuff. This is what you were asking. We've got I made 6 copies of AT Capture. I launched all 6. They're all recording on one Mac. There's 3 cameras. Does this one look familiar? So we have a USB camera, a standard definition camera, and a high def camera, the top 3. Couldn't get any more power out of the machine. I think it's the USB camera and the high def pulling all the resources. So I couldn't, and plus I didn't have 3 more cameras. So the last 3, I just had them pull the same video feed from each one of those. So here we have 6 instances of AT Capture recording video and audio in real time. And these are the cameras that are used to do that. The white one, if you notice below it, that's a Canopus box. The camera only puts out standard composite video, or standard video. So we need a way of getting it into the computer so that Canopus analog to digital video takes that video and tosses it onto a FireWire line. And if you notice the black box under that box, that is a Crestron controller box. So if I was viewing that machine from here, I can have an iPad in my hand, wireless iPad, and I can tell it, turn the camera left, turn the camera right, and here I am like 1,000 miles away, and it'll remotely control that camera. And for the high definition, we have a high definition camera, and that puts out an HDMI signal. So we need to get that HDMI signal into the Mac, so we have a Canopus HD converter box that takes that HDMI, converts it to FireWire. So that's how we get that. And then there's things beyond our control, things that Apple, you need to do something because it's just out of our realm. It's beyond our knowledge. It could be undocumented. It could be a bug or something like that. And there's an issue where if you have a USB drive, a thumb drive, and you have it plugged in, and once you hit record, QuickTime is going to lock that into its usage. When you launch QuickTime for recording, it creates temporary files in the event that it needs to get additional file space. It may never use it, but it's still going to lock it out, and you're not going to be able to eject it. So you'd have to stop the application to properly remove it. And if you remove it without stopping it, it may crash. And we send, AT-Capture sends system log information. So if you ever wonder, hey, we didn't see this file show up where it needs to, what happened? So check your system log. It says, it basically tells you everything that's going on. And it'll also tell you how long it took to copy files, to encode files. You can sort of harvest it see how it works on your network. And we used to be able to schedule this thing. You know, at the end of Sunday Mass, we'd say, okay, start recording next Sunday. And then, you know, we'd forget about it. Apple put out a release. They improved memory management. And one of the other features is they released temporary storage space. So apparently, they were never releasing memory. And now when they release it, it only sticks around for 3 days before it's released because we can only set this to go 3 days out at a time, where before it was unlimited. So maybe that's an Apple bug, I don't know. And then we also have the high-def codecs. QuickTime cheats. Inside the QuickTime itself, it has its own little knowledge saying, I know how to read high-def video. And I go, well, okay, I'm built upon QuickTime, but this doesn't know how to read high-def video. So you would have to install the Apple HD codec for this app to do high-definition video. And you get that from Final Cut Pro and Compressor. It was a package. But that's sort of all changed, so I don't know how you get it now. And we use QuickTime Player. We like QuickTime Player Pro 766 for editing because it allows you to piece sections of files together, where QuickTime 10 doesn't allow you to do that. It doesn't have that. And I was talking about analog to digital converters. We use the ones by Grass Valley. And these are the model numbers and the approximate price of those. And FireWire inputs, very important. This is a MacBook. It has no FireWire. we're screwed. So this is a USB, so bear in mind. If you want to make a laptop into a capture, make sure it has FireWire, unless you want to use the built-in eyesight. And I don't know why Thunderbolt didn't show up. Thunderbolt's a new technology. We haven't done much with it yet, but definitely we'll be supporting that. So how do you obtain AT capture? Email us. It's free to educational institutions. We wanted a solution. We didn't want a partial solution to stuff. We want total animation. We don't want human intervention. We don't want to have to hire a student, or we don't want to have somebody come into work weird hours just to do one little process or multiple processes so that things can finish. So this app does it all, and we want to share it with anybody who wants to use it. And send us feedback. If you say it sucks, tell us. And if you have recommendations on what to fix, let us know. And if there's a feature that you say, you know, it would be nice if it could do this, let us know. That's how the conversion from MOV to M4V happened. One of our videographers said, you know, I need to compress these files all the time. Okay, I'll put in a button for you. So the next day he had it. So if you have a feature request that you'd like to see or something differently, let us know, and we're pretty much agreeable for doing that. So, any questions? Yes?
Can you capture a screen capture? You know, like a screen grab, like they're showing a PowerPoint or something?
If
Well, it seems like it's just capturing the video.
Well, if you're in a classroom, more than likely that PowerPoint is being.
yeah, it's thrown. It's being displayed through the video, so it'll be captured as a part of the video stream. Yeah.
Usually we have a video right on the instructor, and then we have the presentation will be offset. So.
Right. If you notice with those 6 AT captures, that's sort of like a lead-in. What if we had the ability to select 4 multiple inputs so that the screen comes out evenly? And then you can select maybe, you know, we've looked into that, and you're going to have somebody where they want this stuff captured. Another where they want the camera on the professor speaking, and then maybe the response of the classroom. So up to 3 inputs maybe they want. We should be able to provide 3. 4 is nicer. Technically, 4 video inputs at one time is normal. But like I said, this thing is USB. I think it was dragging everything down. And we had a high def cam, huge resource, and I think maybe that was dragging it down. Any other questions? So it breathes life into your PowerPCs. You know, people are just trying to get rid of those things. So grab them and turn them into capture systems. And then contacts. If you want to contact the department directly, I would do that first. But there's my email if you wanted to contact me if you have questions, issues.
Are you the main developer?
Yes.
Is there other people that are doing it?
A group of 3, me, myself, and I. Me and myself, they went on to do other things because they have a regular job, but I stood back holding the fort down. Yeah, it evolved, this whole thing evolved where we wanted to streamline the mass capture. And what they would do is they would record the mass from the video channel, the campus video channel, onto a VCR player. Then they would play that back into a PC capture card. Then they would edit that, and then they would use another app. It's like, that's crazy, that's crazy. We can do it a lot quicker and publish it a lot faster. And likewise, there's just the one app. It does everything for you. And if there's more stuff that we want, we'll add that to. It's a Mac.
Another thing I'm kind of worried about, when I met with my Apple rep, and I know we all have different Apple reps, they kind of made it seem like if you already had iTunes U set up with private and public, then you could continue with that. But for new universities that are kind of starting, they were going to kind of limit your private iTunes U. Like they might even be getting rid of that.
It wouldn't surprise me, because when they made the move to the new public, they didn't touch the private. And I'm wondering if they sort of want to phase that out.
So I know you already have it set up, but we have iTunes U public, but it's really just a bunch of marketing.
Right, and we have, we predominantly, well, we're admins to the public and private, but the public is normally another group. And they were contacting us and saying, hey, you know, the normal workflows only put title and description, and we need more information. And can you write something that does that for the public side? So I'm actually working on that as well to fix that problem.
You know, like with our capturing a lecture, we probably prefer that to be private, so I guess I have to.
Yeah, and that's, we have a lot of that too. And we have a lot of the private, and this captures it. And in fact, instead of logging in as an admin and uploading that stuff or using the Apple application, you can just use iTunes or AT Capture to do that as well. And there's a feature in there I didn't show you, it's called batch. So what we had was, we'd have a couple of professors say, hey, I've got 30 videos that I want to upload. It's like, it'd be nice, you know, one button, just send them all out. It's like, well, we don't have that, so we'll get a student and it's going to take them a couple of days. So we want to do like mass amounts of things, so where maybe it'll read a spreadsheet file or something like that, so that it knows what metadata to assign with each file, and then it just goes and does its merry thing. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.